Can dreams come true? Well, the ultimate car dream will become reality this week on Motoring 2001.
TSN's Motoring 2001 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas. Keep a good thing going. Go Midas.
Reno, Nevada, where the casinos are humming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And inside, people hoping to hit the jackpot and have enough money to buy anything they want. And of course, that has to include a dream car. And as we all know, that car has to be impractical, unnecessary, and absolutely wrong for most people. Then it has to be a Porsche, because that's exactly how the company describes their new 911 Turbo. And this week we're going to check out the new car, but the real treat this week, we're going to head into the Black Rock Desert where the current land speed record was set. And a selected few are going to get the opportunity to get behind the wheel of the new Turbo and drive as fast as their hearts will allow them. So let's get started and check out Porsche's newest rocket.
Well, traditionally the 911 Turbo has always been the premier performer in the Porsche model line, and then the 2001 Turbo is exactly the same. So it is our top dog, king of the hill, best of the best if you like, the best performer, and it really casts a halo on all of the, a very positive halo on all of the Porsche cars in our model line. The all-new 911 that came out in 1998, a car with more cabin room, more safety features, a car that is more approachable to a broader audience. It still is the best performing 911 we've ever built. This car, the 2001 911 Turbo, carries that one step farther. And it has all those wonderful innovations such as the Porsche Stability Management. And now, for the very first time, we're offering it with a new Tiptronic S automatic transmission system. So again, it makes it more approachable to a broader audience.
Looking at the vehicle, what strikes you first is the very large air intakes in the front. The size of the air intakes in the front of the vehicle have been increased by 50%. And it gives the front of the car a very aggressive look, but it also is real functional because the turbo engine has a larger cooling requirement, and the larger air intakes are to feed air to the larger radiators, which have 50% more area on them too. The engine's based on the GT1 race engine, which is a pretty amazing power plant in itself. 415 horsepower, 415 feet-pound of torque. The thing about it is the torque band's extremely wide. It starts at 2,700 and goes up to 4,300 RPMs, which is a long time to keep your peak torque.
We will sell more 911 Turbos in 2001 than in any year in the history of the model. And for several reasons, one being, as you mentioned, the economies are very strong right now in Canada and the United States. Secondly, we believe the way we have price positioned this car, that it represents true value in the high-performance sports car segment. We'd like to welcome you to the Black Rock Desert. It's the site of the World Land Speed Record. On October the 15th of 1997, Andy Green, piloting Thrust 2, recorded a speed of 763 miles per hour. Broke the sound barrier, became the first and only person to break the sound barrier on the ground. The journalists will be coming to drive the new 911 Turbo on the exact same course in a shorter version that the World Land Speed Record was established. So it's a huge, the Black Rock Desert is 40 miles long, the longest straight course in the world, but there's nothing to hit out there. It's very safe. The journalists will be driving with Hurley Haywood, the most accomplished endurance sports car racer in the world, who's probably also the #1 safety feature we're going to have on the car, because he's going to be there to personally guide the journalists through their top speed run.
So Hurley, what are you thinking right now? Usually you're behind the wheel. What's it like?
Well, I got used to it last week. It's not so bad. And the car is so, so stable, and it's really easy to drive it at that speed. The only, thing I kind of worry about is just if somebody, panics and really starts to overcorrect. But so far we've had no problems.
You'll be the last one to panic, hopefully, right?
That's the idea.
Mark Maynard is on the course. Mark Maynard is on the course.
About where I should be. Yep, right, perfect. Right down the middle. Right down this, just like that. Okay, now get on it. Shift. Fifth. Yep, shift. Fifth gear. Keep on going. Nice and straight, just like this. All right, put your foot down now. Shift. Okay, put your foot down. Keep it like this. Keep your foot down. Start to push. Push. Push the throttle. Push the throttle. I need to have power here, acceleration, and that's what stabilizes it. Okay. Keep it going. My pleasure.
Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. You have a good flight back.
Thanks, Robert.
So?
It was great. Everyone's got to do that once in their life, if not more.
Were you nervous at all before or during, or how did the car handle? What was it like out there?
Handled like a dream. Absolute dream. And riding with Hurley, no, I wasn't as nervous as I thought I was going to be. So it was good.
Good. I'm going to forget this for a while.
No, not at all.
Carlos? Yep. There you go. Specifically measure the distance. We're running a mile, and we're also running a 132-foot trap to give them a top speed. And it's measured to very close tolerance, less than 6 inches in the mile. And we're doing this even though it isn't an official land speed record. We're doing it like it was an official speed record, and then we're issuing a certificate to each driver on how fast he went.
We're going to take a break, but we'll be back as more drivers live their dream, including the only Canadian in the bunch.
Inside the Outback is as versatile and well finished as it ought to be. Okay.
Yes.
The more answers we get, the more questions we have. Tires and SUVs, the sequel, coming up later on Kenzie's Corner.
Under normal circumstances, we wouldn't dream of doing a test drive on such a dark and dank day, but it's the perfect type of weather to put this all-new Outback through its paces. You see, not only does it get a new engine, but it gets an all-new all-wheel drive system.
While an adventurous vehicle, the Outback never really did live up to expectation, as the base engine was, to be polite, a little breathless. The launch of the six-cylinder engine fulfills the promise. The new 3-litre twin-cam 24-valve flat 6 bumps power production to 212 horses and 210 pounds-feet of torque. As for performance, the tip-in is satisfactory, the mid-range quick, and unlike the 4, the top end delivers plenty of passing power. The 4-speed automatic works well with the 6. The gear ratios are spaced such that the moderate throttle application keeps the engine in the sweet spot. It also helps that 174 pounds-feet of torque is available at a leisurely 2200 RPM. The kickdown also drops a cog quickly enough.
While you really do appreciate the extra power, the part that really impresses is the fact that this thing is buttery smooth in operation. The 6 just doesn't growl and grumble like the 4 does. The only drawback with the drivetrain, well, it's with the shift gate. It's all too easy to pull back into third. Now on the highway at 100 kilometers an hour, that bumps the tach to about 3,500 RPM, which is going to swallow a lot more gas. In drive, you drop down to about 2,700 RPM.
With the engine comes the latest and arguably greatest in all-wheel drive technology.
Rather than being an extension of the original design, the new system stretches the benchmark. To achieve this, Subaru had to abandon their preference for a front-biased all-wheel drive system and switch to a rear-biased design.
You know, the reason we were able to do a successful skid pattern test with this Outback is down to these three letters, VDC, or Vehicle Dynamic Control. This system, using the all-wheel drive, anti-lock brakes and controlling engine output, can guide you back onto the straight and narrow. If the system detects oversteer or understeer, it'll apply the brakes, lock the all-wheel drive system, and control engine output if necessary to guide you back where you should be pointed. It all works exceptionally well.
The all-wheel drive system switches from a 45-55 mechanical split to the rear wheels to an even 50-50 whenever the need arises. Traction control does as it should, limiting wheel spin by first braking the spinning wheel, then, if needed, cutting the engine power to regain traction.
You know, inside the Outback, well, it's as loaded and as versatile as its price tag would suggest. You get a decent amount of space with the seats up. Fold them flat and there's an acre of room, and the wheel wells, but they don't intrude into the thing too much. The part I do like, however, when the seats are up and in use, you don't necessarily have to use the center headrest. It stores underneath there, which improves the view through the rear view mirror. You also get not one, but two sunroofs, leather seating, a decent set of analog gauges, power windows, locks, mirrors and cruise control. On the center console, automatic climate control, and below that, a wonderful sounding Macintosh stereo. The only problem is, it looks like an 8-track from the early 70s.
The suspension remains basically the same as the previous system, meaning McPherson struts at all four corners. The long travel design brings both a comfortable ride and enough ground clearance to tackle mild off-roading. Braking power comes from 4 discs and a state-of-the-art anti-lock system.
You know, while the brakes on this Outback function very well, requiring just 34 meters to come to a rest from 80k, there's one drawback. The pedal is spongy and consequently feels as though it gets a little tired and needs to go for a lie down on the floor. It's a pity.
From a safety perspective, the Outback delivers all the usual items, including front and side airbags, as well as active items like the VDC and anti-lock brakes.
You know, forget about going off-roading in the Outback. While you can, because of the ground clearance and reasonably aggressive tyres, that's not where the all-wheel drive with vehicle dynamic stability control comes to the fore. It's the on-road stability it adds. Add to that the new 8.6 engine, and this Outback is now the way it should have been from day one.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns the importance of a regular and thorough underhood inspection of your vehicle. When you see a radiator come out of a vehicle in this bad a condition, it just tells you that nobody's been checking under the hood of the car. We probably see a car a month come in with a rad as bad as this one. This came out of a 10-year-old Dodge minivan the other day, and amazingly, even though the vehicle got towed in, there was no engine damage. I'd consider that driver extremely lucky to have got away with running a radiator this bad, stalling out in traffic because of a leak and not damaging the engine. You likely won't be as lucky. So make sure that you have the underhood area of your car inspected for just this type of deterioration on a regular basis. A rad like this didn't get just this bad overnight or in a couple of months. It took years of neglect. When you see it starting to deteriorate, that's the time to change it out before you get left on the side of the road. That's your Midas tip of the week.
It looks like a Mini from 100 yards. That sentiment sums up the new car in a nutshell. While the front and rear designs speak to the original penned by Alex Isagonis, the rest is anything but. The side profile looks too long when compared with either the width or height. Ditto the 15 or optional 16-inch wheels. The one touch that does harken back to the original is the fake gutter that rings the roof panel, and the fact that it's not body colour. However, in the clinics held to assess the car's potential, it was a 50-50 split between those that liked the odd colour roof and those that hated it. So when the Mini comes to Canada, look for an option that delivers a single body colour. The external dimensions are considerably larger than the old Mini, the whole lot riding on a longish 97-inch wheelbase. Inside the underdash tray's centrally located speedo, a tack bolted to the steering column and toggle switches are instant reminders of the original, as is the tight but functional trunk. The hatchback design and 50-50 split folding rear seats lend a measure of flexibility. Beneath the hood is a 1.6-litre twin cam that will produce just under 100 horsepower in the base Mini and about 110 to 115 in the Cooper. The most intriguing, however, is the Cooper S, which, with the aid of a supercharger, will bump the power to close to 160 horses. The power in all cases is relayed to the front wheels via a 5-speed manual or 4-speed automatic. Safety is top-notch with the front and side airbags, along with a revised version of BMW's inflatable head restraint. Anti-lock brakes and electronic stability program will also be available.
We're back in the Black Rock Desert where Porsche is allowing journalists to try and set their own speed mark in the new 911 Turbo. Now, in the nearby town of Gerlach, this town holds the record for probably the most unusual tourist attraction in the world. It is called the Nebulous Entity, or Bone Tree, and it is all part of a celebration known as Burning Man, held here every Labor Day. Over 30,000 people come into Gerlach for a celebration of, well, the evolution of creativity. But you got to admit, it has to be the most unusual roadside tourist attraction you'll ever see. All right, let's head to the garage and join Bill Gardner.
Brad, I think I'd stay well away from those nutcases and their pile of bones there. You're lucky they weren't around. You might be on the top of that pile. Anyhow, we've got an email this week from one of our viewers, Wayne Sajko in Halifax, Nova Scotia. He's got a two-part question here that we're going to answer, and it starts out, I recently purchased a 96 Mazda Miata, which includes a removable hardtop. I plan to store the car over the winter, unheated storage. Should I store the car with the hardtop on or with the soft top up? Will the soft top deteriorate more quickly if it is folded down for such a long period of time? That's the first part of his question. And Wayne, I'm going to base my answer on previous experience, not with Mazda Miatas, but with convertible tops from marine units, from boats. And my advice is that you leave the top up and treat it with a protectant before you store it away, something like 303. I think you'll find that your top will work much better that way. When they're folded up, they tend to shrink and cause problems the next season. So that's my advice there. And the second part of his question is, also the car will be 5 years old in the spring, but only has 30,000 kilometers on it. Should I change the timing belt in the spring or wait until the car has the recommended 96,000 kilometers? Well, Wayne, for questions like this, and when we're referring to this topic around the shop, we use a book from Autodata called Timing Belts, and this details just about everything you want to know about timing belts on overhead cam engines. And when we go to the page for Mazda Miata, 90 to 96, it tells me, it says Mazda recommends replacement every 60,000 miles, remember this is a US book, or every 60 months, whichever occurs first. Now the spring of 2001 will be approximately the 60 months for your car, and you're well under the mileage, obviously, at 30,000 kilometers. So I don't think you have to be in a big rush to replace that timing belt. However, you don't want to go too far away from these guidelines. Remember, of course, that there is some room for some safety built into these guidelines. When they tell you to replace it at 60,000 miles or 60 months, it's not going to fail at 60,001 miles. They've got some headroom there, some safety room. However, when I refer to this book, there's another interesting point here, and it says, caution, this engine has been identified as an interference engine in which the possibility of valve to piston damage in the event of a timing belt failure is most likely to occur. So whenever you have an interference engine like this, you don't want to deviate too far from the specs, because the consequences of doing so, valve to piston damage occurring in the engine, is something you definitely want to avoid. That's a huge repair expense if that happens. So I'd probably be looking at replacing that timing belt sometime early in 2001 when you get that vehicle out of storage. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2001.
Now, we talked about this Firestone tire Ford Explorer rollover thing before, but there's still a bunch of aspects of this that don't make a lot of sense to a lot of us. First of all, why are most of the tires failing on the left rear wheel of these vehicles? If it was just a tire issue, you think it would be more equally distributed. We don't know. Another thing we don't know is why are all these vehicles rolling over? I mean, a single tire failure is not enough to cause even an SUV to flip over. I mean, I had the left front wheel of my Suburban fall off completely on the highway at about 110 kilometers an hour. The vehicle fell down on the ball joint, but I just lifted off, slowly pulled it off to the shoulder, went back and got my wheel, bolted it on, drove home, no problem. It just shouldn't cause a vehicle to tip. Car and Driver magazine recently did a test whereby they took an Explorer and rigged it up so that they could remote control blow out one of the rear wheels. They took it to a drag strip and tried several tests at speeds ranging from 30 to 70 miles an hour. In one case, they even had the driver take his hands off the wheel altogether. The results? Nothing. They had no problem gathering the vehicle up and taking it off to the side of the road. So why are these people flipping over? Well, we're not sure. We suspect that a lot of these drivers who are older and perhaps not as well trained are panicked by the sound of the tread separating and flapping around in the wheel well. Maybe they wrench the car to the side to get it off the road, then it hits the dirt, and then who knows what happens. I mean, with the high center of gravity, SUVs are much more likely to roll over anyway. So what should you do if you have a catastrophic tire failure? Well, it's easier said than done, but try not to panic. Just lift off on the gas, hit the four-way flashers if you have the presence of mind to do so. Don't wrench the steering wheel, don't slam on the brakes. Wait till you get the speed right down to a crawl, pull off the side of the road, and assess the damage. Oh, and as Bill Gardner would surely tell you, check those tire pressures every week. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Try not to follow lines on the road.
We're back in the Black Rock Desert in Nevada, the new Porsche 911 Turbo. Hurley Haywood in the passenger seat, yours truly behind the wheel. Last ride of the day, hoping to take the top speed back to Canada.
Well, you got it. You got top speed of the day.
No.
179 plus.
Couldn't have done it without this guy. I wouldn't have done it without this guy.
Good.
Car without this guy.
Time to wrap the show up.
We'll see you next week as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and people who drive them.
Called the Chicago Speakeasy. We're driving a Cadillac. We've had it for about 15 minutes.
TSN's Motoring 2001 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas. Keep a good thing going. Go Midas.